Forget peaceful sunsets and quiet naps. Inside America's senior living facilities, a different kind of war is brewing. We aren't talking about medical concerns. We are talking about high-stakes drama over the speed of an elevator and literal conspiracies regarding the texture of mashed potatoes. Today, we are looking at 55 of the most absurd, petty, and hilarious complaints ever filed by pensioners who clearly have way too much time on their hands. Some of these are pure gold. 1. One man in Ohio filed a grievance because the communal puzzle had a single missing piece, and he was convinced a specific neighbor had stolen it just to deny him the satisfaction of finishing. He demanded the staff search the neighbor's room and perform a full inventory of her drawers. When the piece was eventually found under the table, he did not apologize. Instead, he claimed the neighbor had planted it there during the night to make him look crazy. Do you think people who intentionally hide puzzle pieces deserve their own special place in hell? 2. One retiree in Florida filed a formal complaint against the management because a squirrel in the courtyard was staring at him with malicious intent. This guy actually kept a logbook of every time the rodent looked his way, claiming the animal was hired by his ex-wife to spy on his daily routine. He demanded the facility hire an exterminator specifically for this one squirrel, or at least force the animal to wear a tiny blindfold. When the manager refused, the resident threatened to sue for emotional distress caused by unauthorized wildlife surveillance. 3. In a Colorado home, a woman reported her neighbor for hostile knitting. She claimed the rhythmic clicking of the needles was actually a secret Morse code used to spread rumors about her behind her back. She demanded the knitting club be monitored by a certified translator, or that all needles be replaced with silent rubber versions. Is it possible to knit an insult into a sweater? Or has this resident just watched way too many spy movies in her downtime? 4. You would think winning a game would be the goal, but for one gentleman in Arizona, the issue was not the game, it was the caller. He filed a grievance stating that the activities director's voice was offensively cheerful for a Tuesday afternoon. He argued that such high levels of enthusiasm were a health hazard to people with low blood pressure and suggested the staff should speak in a more monotone, respectful whisper to match the somber reality of aging. Have you ever been so annoyed by someone's happiness that you tried to get them professionally silenced? 5. When a retirement home in Texas decided to refresh their hallways with a new coat of paint, they did not expect a revolt. One resident claimed the new eggshell white was actually subliminal gray and was part of a government experiment to make seniors feel more compliant. She refused to leave her room for 3 weeks, claiming the color gave her a spiritual headache and that it clashed with her collection of porcelain owls. She demanded the facility repaint the entire wing back to the original antique sand, or pay for her moving expenses to a place with more honest walls. 6. One resident in California complained that the salt shakers in the dining hall had too many holes in the lid. He claimed that the flow of salt was too aggressive and that it was a secret conspiracy to raise the blood pressure of the residents so the on-site pharmacy could sell more heart medication. He actually started bringing his own toothpick to the table every single day to plug up 3 of the 5 holes in the shaker before he would even think about seasoning his chicken soup. 7. One elderly lady complained that the automated voice in the elevator was judgmental and condescending. According to her, every time the voice said, "going down," it sounded like it was making a commentary on her declining health and social status. She demanded the voice be replaced by a recording of her grandson, or at least someone who sounded like they actually enjoyed their job. She eventually started taking the stairs at 87 years old just to spite the machine. 8. A resident in Arizona complained that the therapy dog, a golden retriever named Buddy, was being far too needy. He filed a report stating that the dog looked at him with too much expectation for a head scratch and that it was a direct violation of his personal space. He suggested the facility replace the dog with a more aloof animal, like a large tortoise or perhaps a very quiet lizard, that would respect his boundaries and not beg for attention while he was trying to read his newspaper in peace. 9. One resident in Arizona complained that a specific night shift nurse was too attractive and that her presence was a calculated distraction designed to make him forget his medication schedule. He claimed her smile was a weapon of mass distraction and that she was clearly a foreign spy sent to extract his family's secret barbecue sauce recipe. He demanded she be replaced by someone more grandmotherly and less likely to look like a soap opera star. If your nurse looks like a supermodel, is that a complaint or a 5-star review? 10. Living in close quarters can be tough. But one man complained that his neighbor's rhythmic breathing was too loud during the communal movie night. The neighbor was not snoring or coughing. He was just existing. The complainant demanded that the loud breather be moved to the back of the room or forced to wear a specialized mask to dampen the sound of his lungs functioning. He even suggested that the facility should screen people for excessive lung capacity before letting them move in. 11. In one upscale community in North Carolina, a man filed a formal grievance because the mail carrier always delivered his letters last. He convinced himself that the staff was screening his junk mail to find out his net worth, and that the 3-minute delay from the first room to his was a calculated psychological tactic. He demanded the mail route be reversed every other day to ensure fairness in the distribution of grocery store coupons and dental insurance flyers. Is it possible to be this obsessed with the mail, or is he just looking for a reason to talk to the manager? 12. Food segregation reached a bizarre peak in Maine when a retired judge complained that his peas were touching the mashed potatoes without prior consent. He filed a grievance stating that the lack of a structural barrier on his plate caused a flavor contamination that ruined his entire evening. He requested that the kitchen staff use partitioned plates usually reserved for toddlers, arguing that his dignity was less important than a clean separation of legumes and starches. Is this a genius way to enjoy food, or just a sign of extreme control issues? 13. Food is always a battlefield, but one retired accountant took it to the extreme. He spent an entire afternoon dissecting his chocolate chip cookies and counting the chips in each one. He then presented a spreadsheet to the kitchen manager proving that his neighbor had 3 more chips in her cookie than he did. He claimed this was a blatant act of favoritism and demanded a refund on his monthly maintenance fee due to the inconsistent distribution of chocolate. Do you think this guy is a hero for demanding cookie equality or just someone who needs a new hobby? 14. A resident in a high-end retirement home in California complained that the morning yoga instructor was breathing too loud and too purposefully. She claimed the instructor's deep exhales were blowing negative energy toward her and ruining her inner peace during the meditation segment. The complaint specifically requested that the instructor perform the entire class in total silence and stop smiling so much because it felt aggressive at 8 in the morning. She eventually started bringing a small desk fan to the class to blow the instructor's air back in her direction. 15. When the same woman won bingo 3 weeks in a row, another resident did not just get jealous, she called for a full investigation. She filed a formal complaint, claiming the winner was actually a professional gambler hired by the administration to keep the prize money within the building. She demanded that the bingo balls be weighed and measured by an independent third party and that the winner be banned from all future social events until she passed a polygraph test. It did not matter that the prize was just a $10 gift card to a local coffee shop. 16. 2 neighbors in an Oregon facility ended up in a year-long feud over the volume of the nightly news. One resident complained that the other person's television was so loud it was vibrating his collection of glass figurines. Instead of asking him to turn it down, he filed a complaint stating the noise was a form of acoustic warfare designed to drive him out of his apartment so the neighbor could take over his extra closet space. He demanded the facility install soundproof padding on his walls or force the neighbor to use headphones at all times. 17. A pensioner in Florida complained that the lilies in the lobby were smelling too aggressively. He claimed the scent was not just strong, but that the flowers were actively trying to dominate the room and drown out his expensive cologne. He demanded the floral arrangements be replaced with plastic plants, or something with no personality at all, arguing that natural scents were a violation of his right to a sterile environment. He even threatened to bring a bucket of bleach to the lobby to neutralize what he called the floral assault on his senses. 18. One gentleman in Nevada complained that the ice in his water glass was clinking too loudly against the side of the plastic cup. He filed a report suggesting the facility switch to rubberized cups or soft silicone ice cubes that would not make a sound. He argued that the clicking noise was interfering with his ability to hear his own thoughts during dinner, and that the dining room was starting to sound like a busy construction site because of all the people drinking cold beverages at the same time. 19. When a new resident moved in and was slightly too friendly, one woman filed a complaint alleging he was an undercover cop sent to investigate her bridge club for illegal gambling. She claimed his interest in her sourdough recipe was actually an interrogation technique and demanded the facility run a second background check to see if he was hiding a badge in his walker. Have you ever been so suspicious of a nice person that you assumed they were a secret agent? 20. A man in a retirement community in Nevada filed a complaint stating that the new ADA-compliant high-profile toilets were an insult to his height. He claimed that having his feet slightly off the ground made him feel like he was sitting on a throne of lies, and that the facility was trying to make him feel shorter than he actually was. He demanded the administration reinstall his old toilet or provide him with a custom-made mahogany footstool to restore his dignity. He refused to use the common area bathrooms until they provided him with a stepladder. 21. A retired physics teacher in Florida complained that the silver car parked in Space 42 was actually a tactical solar weapon. He claimed the sunlight reflecting off the bumper was specifically aimed at his balcony to burn his prize-winning begonias and blind him during his morning crossword. He did not just ask the owner to move. He filed a 3-page report demanding the facility ban all chrome-finished vehicles and install military-grade anti-glare curtains at the car owner's expense. The worst part? The car belonged to the local priest. 22. In a high-end home in Virginia, a woman filed an official complaint because a newcomer had the audacity to sit in the chair she had occupied for 6 years. She did not just call it her chair. She claimed the indentation in the cushion was ergonomically molded to her specific skeletal structure and that the new resident was essentially committing identity theft by sitting there. She demanded the administration cordon off the chair with velvet ropes or label it with a brass plaque to prevent further trespassing. Is there a piece of furniture in your life you would literally go to war over? 23. A retired librarian filed a formal complaint because the font on the monthly activity calendar was too whimsical for a serious institution. She claimed that using Comic Sans for the water aerobics announcement was an insult to the intelligence of the residents and made the facility look like a daycare center. She would not stop until the management reprinted 500 copies in Times New Roman, claiming that a serif font was the only thing standing between them, and total social collapse. Would you risk a physical confrontation over a font choice? 24. Technology strikes again in a Massachusetts facility when a man complained that the common room Amazon Alexa was laughing at his jokes when nobody else would. He filed a grievance stating the device was mocking him and that it was part of a psychological experiment run by the tech company to see how long it would take for him to lose his mind. He demanded the device be unplugged and locked in a lead-lined box because he was sure it was reporting his daily complaints directly to the Internal Revenue Service. 25. A retired judge in Texas filed a formal complaint because the kitchen staff started putting a sprig of parsley on his dinner plate. He argued that the herb was a non-consensual addition to his meal and that the green color was a visual assault that ruined the aesthetic of his mashed potatoes. He claimed the parsley was a tripping hazard for his fork and demanded a written apology from the head chef for trying to force a healthy lifestyle on him without a court order. 26. A woman in a New York facility filed a complaint against her neighbor for wearing a red silk bathrobe to the communal coffee station. She claimed the garment was too scandalous for a Tuesday morning and that the way the light caught the fabric was causing the male residents to have dangerously elevated heart rates. She suggested the facility implement a strict Victorian-era dress code for the breakfast lounge to prevent any further outbreaks of senior citizen lust. 27. Peace and quiet are relative. But for one man in Seattle, his neighbor's whistling was a crime against humanity. He filed a grievance stating that the man in room 4B was whistling the theme song to a popular 60s sitcom slightly off-key, which was causing his brain to misfire. He claimed the subtle pitch issues were a form of psychological torture and demanded the neighbor be banned from using his lips for anything other than eating until he could pass a professional musical audition. 28. Water aerobics is usually a calm affair, but one resident in Arizona complained that the pool was too splashing. She did not mean it was too full or too cold. She literally complained that the water moved too much when people did their exercises and that the ripples were making her feel seasick while she was standing in the shallow end. She demanded the class be restricted to slow-motion movements only, and that any splashing result in an immediate fine for water-based assault. 29. A retired biologist took the communal bird feeder very seriously. He filed a complaint against another resident for filling the feeder with low-grade sunflower seeds, claiming it was attracting the wrong class of birds. He argued that the influx of common sparrows was driving away the dignified cardinals, and that this was a metaphor for the declining social standards of the facility. He demanded a seat on the board of directors just to oversee the avian nutrition program. Would you start a neighborhood feud over the social status of local birds? Year 30. A woman in a Pennsylvania home complained that the janitor's floor wax smelled too much like success. She filed a formal report stating that the high-gloss finish on the tiles was making her feel inadequate and that the smell of pine was triggering memories of a camping trip she hated in 1958. She demanded the facility use a more depressing, neutral-smelling wax that did not make her feel like she was living in a high-end hotel she did not deserve. 31. A gentleman in Florida filed a formal grievance because the facility's automatic doors were opening too fast. He claimed the sensors were biased against his specific walking pace and that the doors were trying to race him. He demanded a technician recalibrate the entire entrance so the doors would wait for him to be exactly 3 feet away before even thinking about moving. He actually stood in the lobby for 2 hours with a tape measure to prove his point, arguing that the door's eagerness was a sign of disrespect toward his age. 32. When a new resident moved in with the exact same model of silver walker, one man in Arizona filed a formal trespassing report. He claimed that having an identical mobility aid in the same hallway was a visual identity theft, and that he was constantly worried he would accidentally walk away with someone else's legs. He demanded the newcomer be forced to spray paint their walker a neon color to ensure there was no confusion, arguing that his specific shade of industrial chrome was a key part of his personal brand. 33. Imagine being the head chef at a luxury assisted living facility and getting a formal written warning because an 82-year-old resident claimed you were trying to assassinate her with spicy food. The culprit? A single microscopic grain of black pepper on her scrambled eggs. She did not just send it back. She called a family meeting and demanded the kitchen staff be tested for radical culinary agendas. 34. Landscaping day is usually a sign of a well-maintained facility, but for one resident, it was a declaration of war. He did not complain about the mowers or the leaf blowers. No, he complained that the grass was growing too loudly after the rain. He insisted that the sound of blades of grass pushing through the soil was keeping him awake at night and demanded the facility stop watering the lawn entirely. When told that grass does not actually make noise while growing, he accused the manager of being in the pocket of big fertilizer. 35. In a retirement community in Colorado, a woman complained that the morning announcements were read by a staff member with a Midwestern accent that she found deeply irritating. She demanded that the facility hire a professional voice actor with a refined East Coast accent to read the daily lunch specials, claiming that hearing the word pop instead of soda was ruining her digestion and making her feel like she was living in a barn. Would you honestly care about someone's accent if they were just telling you that it is Taco Tuesday? 36. A retired mechanic in Michigan filed a formal complaint because the facility's lawnmowers were being operated in a clockwise direction every Tuesday. He argued that mowing counterclockwise was the only scientific way to ensure the grass blades were cut at a proper aerodynamic angle for optimal growth. He even drew up a complex diagram showing how the current mowing pattern was creating turbulence in the courtyard and demanded the landscaping crew be sent to a specialized training seminar or be fired immediately for their incompetence. 37. In the world of luxury senior living, the shape of your ice matters more than you would think. A retired engineer spent his entire afternoon writing a 3-page manifesto about the kitchen's transition from square ice cubes to cylindrical ones. He argued that the new shape increased the surface area too quickly, causing his ginger ale to dilute at an unacceptable rate of change. He actually brought a thermometer to the dining room to prove his point. Is this a genius level of boredom, or should he have just finished his drink faster? 38. A man in Oklahoma became convinced the lobby ceiling fan was a helicopter in training. He filed an official report claiming the high setting was a plot to create a localized tornado designed to suck up his expensive hairpiece. He demanded the fan be locked on the slowest speed or removed entirely to prevent what he called a scalp-related disaster. He even started wearing a chin strap on his wig whenever he had to cross the lobby, just in case the turbulence picked up during his walk to the mailboxes. 39. A retired librarian in Maine filed a complaint because the books in the communal library were organized by the color of their spines instead of the Dewey Decimal System. She claimed this was a direct insult to the history of literature, and that she could not find her favorite mystery novels because they were buried in a sea of blue covers. She spent 3 days straight reorganizing the entire library herself, and then had the nerve to send a bill to the management for her professional consulting fees and labor. 40. A retired city planner in Chicago became obsessed with the elevator wait times in his building. He started timing every trip with a stopwatch and filed a formal grievance, claiming the elevator was programmed to skip his floor more often than others. He argued that the 3-second delay was a direct result of the front desk staff disliking his political views and demanded the entire software system be overhauled to prioritize his floor during peak breakfast hours. He eventually started leaving notes inside the elevator, accusing the machine of being biased against the third floor. 41. Bringing a digital jewelry scale to breakfast sounds like a heist movie, but for a Tennessee retiree, it was about sugar. After weighing 50 packets, he proved a 10% variance and accused the staff of running a black market bakery with the stolen leftovers. He didn't just want a refund. He demanded a forensic audit of the pantry to expose the great sucrose conspiracy of 2024. Have you ever been so suspicious of your condiments that you felt the need to involve scientific equipment? 42. In a New Jersey facility, the real mystery isn't the Bermuda Triangle, it's the laundry room where left socks go to die. One resident became convinced a secret syndicate was stealing her footwear to sell on the dark web to one-footed buyers. She argued that the sheer volume of missing socks was statistically impossible and demanded the installation of waterproof cameras inside the washing machines. She refused to use the service until the facility provided a written guarantee that her pairs would remain inseparable. 43. To most people, dessert is a reward, but for an Illinois architect, a slice of pie cut at a 38-degree angle was a structural disaster. He used a protractor to prove it wasn't a perfect 45-degree wedge, claiming the improper slope made the whipped cream slide off at an uneven rate. He argued this inconsistency ruined the aesthetic integrity of his snack and suggested the chef take a geometry course. Would you honestly care about the math behind your dessert if the pie still tasted like cherries in victory? 44. Newspaper reading turned into acoustic warfare in a Vermont facility when a man reported his neighbor for aggressive page flipping. He claimed the malicious whooshing sound was a deliberate attempt to ruin his crossword focus and blow dust into his personal airspace. His formal grievance requested that the facility force all residents to switch to digital tablets or implement a strict 5-second per page rule. He argued that the wind generated by the paper was a direct violation of his right to a still air environment. 45. Imagine being upset because your life-saving medication is too cheerful. A woman in Ohio complained that her new heart pills were a vulgar shade of neon pink that didn't match the sophisticated aesthetic of her morning robe. She argued that the festive color was mocking her medical condition and demanded the pharmacy provide her with more somber and respectful gray or beige tablets. Would you honestly refuse a vital pill just because the color palette didn't align with your personal brand? 46. Imagine hearing a sound every morning that reminds you exactly of your ex-husband's annoying laugh. That was the reality for an Alabama woman who filed a grievance against the squeaky wheels of the medication cart. She claimed the noise gave her 1970s divorce flashbacks and demanded the cart be lubricated with industrial oil every 6 hours. To avoid this auditory assault, she started hiding in her closet whenever she heard the nurse approaching, refusing to come out until the cart was officially silent. 47. A welcome mat is usually a friendly gesture, but for one California resident, it was a blatant case of false advertising. She argued that because the receptionist didn't smile at her on Tuesday, the mat was a legal lie that should be removed by the board of directors. Her complaint suggested replacing the welcome home message with something more honest, like proceed with caution. She even brought a lawyer to the lobby to debate the legal definition of the word welcome and how it applied to her specific morning mood. 48. Coffee has to be perfect, but for one Texas engineer, the window of ideal temperature was exactly 45 seconds long. He filed a report claiming the lounge coffee was served at a temperature that could melt lead, but immediately became lukewarm dishwater before he could finish a sip. He demanded the facility invest in laboratory-grade insulated mugs to maintain a constant heat of 160 degrees. He argued that anything less was a calculated violation of his morning routine and a failure of basic thermodynamics. 49. One retiree in South Carolina complained that the facility's lawn was suspiciously green and lacked the natural imperfections of real grass. He argued that nature doesn't look that vibrant and accused the management of painting the soil with toxic chemicals to impress his visiting family. He was even caught trying to scrape a blade of grass with a pocket knife to find the real color underneath, demanding the administration stop using visual propaganda to hide the truth about the local dirt. 50. Vanity found a new enemy in the highly polished brass buttons of a Florida building's elevator. One woman filed a grievance stating the buttons were so shiny she could see her own wrinkles in the reflection, calling it unauthorized biological harassment. She demanded the staff dull the finish with sandpaper or cover the buttons in tape so she could travel to the dining hall in a state of blissful denial. Eventually, she just started wearing a full sun hat inside the building to avoid making eye contact with her own age. 51. One resident in an Arizona facility filed a formal complaint because her neighbor's shadow was trespassing into her room through the gap under the door. She argued that since she paid for every square inch of her floor, any darkness originating from someone else was a direct violation of her property rights. She demanded the facility install light-blocking weather stripping or force the neighbor to walk closer to the opposite wall. To her, a shadow wasn't just light being blocked. It was a ghost trying to move in without paying rent. 52. A woman in a Georgia facility became convinced that the new fabric softener used in the laundry department was a mind control agent. She claimed the towels were suspiciously fluffy and felt too good against her skin, which she interpreted as a way to make the residents more docile and easier to manage. She started bringing her own sandpaper-rough towels from home and filed a complaint against the laundry staff for trying to soften her resolve along with her bath linens. She even suggested the dryer sheets were coated in a chemical that made people forget where they put their glasses. 53. A woman in a luxury Texas home filed an official grievance against a garden statue of a cherub, claiming it was watching her with a smug attitude. She argued that the statue's facial expression was a direct, silent commentary on her recent weight gain, and demanded it be rotated 180 degrees to face the bushes. She refused to walk in the garden until the judgmental stone baby was properly blinded or moved to another wing of the building where it couldn't see her. 54. A woman in a New York home filed a report claiming the voice on the intercom was suspiciously sultry whenever it announced the afternoon bridge club. She was convinced the receptionist was trying to seduce her 89-year-old husband by using a specific radio star tone during the morning updates. She demanded that all announcements be made by a male staff member with a cold, or at least someone who sounded significantly less attractive. Have you ever been so protective of your partner that you felt threatened by a disembodied voice? 55. The prize for the most ironic complaint goes to a man in Florida who filed a grievance stating that his retirement home was too full of old people. He argued that the high concentration of seniors made him feel like he was aging faster than he should be, and demanded the facility recruit a younger demographic to balance the vibes. He suggested offering free rent to local college students just so he could look at someone who didn't remember the Truman administration. It's like complaining the ocean has too much water, but he was dead serious. From the geometry of mashed potatoes to the malicious intent of a neighbor's breathing, it's clear that retirement doesn't just provide free time. It gives people a license to become the ultimate critics of reality. These stories prove that no matter how fancy the facility, there's always someone ready to go to legal war over a slice of pie. Now I have to know, which of these complaints actually sounds reasonable to you? Drop the most absurd thing you've ever heard an elderly person complain about in the comments. Hit like if this made you laugh and subscribe to see more of these stories.